All right, we are live now. GM everyone, whoever's joining us live right now. This gets also recorded, of course, so people can see it later. We're here with Jake, and we just wait a few more minutes actually before I start off because I can see there's 10 people, 12 people have joined in. Wow, this is amazing.
Try to get a range of some crazy shit when some newer shit, so you can sort of get a sense of a progression.
Awesome.
I think it'd be a bit more interesting than just all the nice polished ones, which
Yeah,
me
yeah.
and Jake probably want to hide for the most part.
Yeah,
That's a good idea. I'll do that too.
oh, so keep the
Yeah,
more
why
polished
not?
ones for yourselves.
Yeah, literally. I have like a nice folder on my phone, all the nice ones. It's like your good Pokemon cards. Then you have the ones that are a bit fucked up, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'll keep
Yeah,
these
so
away.
when Orkhan first messaged me, like, a couple of months back, and yeah, I think he worked with you guys even months before that because he just wanted to show me the outputs, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen these works by. I think he showed me a grant one, and I was like, I don't recognize this one, and I was
That's a
like,
new
I
one.
definitely don't recognize this X copy piece. I'm also like in the X copy, the Doom DAO, so we
Sure.
go through a lot of X copy works. I'm like, I do not recognize these pieces at all. Like this looked like a Lucrece. I just really assumed it was.
Yeah, they're really fucking cool.
That was so until then I was like, wait a minute, these I noticed the background of the Dangeries ones, and then even with Jake's I was like, there's something
This is a bit funky, yeah.
slightly not like Jake's work, though. Like at first glance, of course I was like, oh yeah, that's Jake's, of course. But yeah, would love to yeah, one of you guys want to start off talking about how you got involved with Orkhan about this. Would love to carry on.
Do you want to go, Jake?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Great to see everybody. Yeah, several months ago, I can't remember exactly when, Orkhan reached out to me about this idea, and my first thought was just like, yeah, hell yeah, go for it. Like, train a model on my work. I really don't even understand how you would begin doing that or what the process is like, but obviously, I've been following the AI. Advancements the past few years and fascinated by the way it's affecting the lives of creatives in the art world. And to have someone with his background and expertise asked um, to do this, it was easy. And like you guys, hopefully you'll show up and we can talk about it more, but like he clearly obviously loves the artists involved and is deeply interested in doing right by the artists and honoring their work. And I think he's deeply fascinated by like what his methods can do when they get to train on like a real artist body of work. So I was just right off the bat kind of interested and thrilled to see what was possible. I honestly had low expectations, and that this is something maybe we can talk about throughout the conversation. But I just, and I'm still, I mean, it still can get better, but it's like, is AI capable of really recreating what I do at all? I'd like to think of my work as deeply human, personal. It's all hand drawn, really laborious, and I don't think my work is like easily describable. It's very complicated and dense and like sort of non-narrative in a lot of ways. I work really stream of consciousness style, and I don't always know why or what I'm doing personally when I'm doing it. That's kind of a lot of the joy of art making for me is the discovery process while I'm making it. So yeah, that's how he started, and then he started to give me results, and we went back and forth. We were just talking about like it's evolved a lot since we started talking. And the big question is always like, I don't even, it seems like the goal of a project like this would be to like make art that fools someone into thinking it's yours. But the more I've been playing with it, the more I see the outputs. I feel like it's much bigger than that. And it goes beyond that. But in a lot of ways, you're showing some of the outputs that I shared with you. A lot of ways, it's very similar to my work. It's got its own different qualities, but it went a lot farther than I thought was possible. And yeah, I've had like, the model's been being updated up until the last minute, but I've had like the past week to try to do as many outputs as I could. And I still am surprised a lot by what's coming out of it. So that's why it's like I'm personally excited to see what comes out of this project over the next couple of days, just because I haven't had a chance to see more than maybe like at the very most like 500 outputs out of this thing, and they're also different. So I'm just excited to see.
Yeah. So I know thematically, like there's different styles of yours. Like, did you have a say in terms of like, will there be more ones that are like of a person's, like that looks like a person, right, versus the ones that are just an eye, versus ones that are like in deep space kind of thing? Or is like, how does the model decide like which, like were you like, do you get to curate like the range of the outputs? Do you know what I mean? The range of the traits?
Yeah, that's how like hopefully you can come to explain it. But there's kind of like two elements to it. There's training the model so the outputs like look like my work and move like them and have similar aesthetic qualities. But there's also the whole way that the prompts are generated. So when I was personally, I don't know if DFace did the same thing, but like the last couple of weeks, I was playing with the random generated output, like the prompts were generated, right? So I could refresh the page, and every time I did that, a new prompt would come up, and I could just like mint that, see how it looked. Not mint it actually, but prompt it and let it go. And I would see what those results look like. But I could also adjust the prompts myself or type in my own prompts and see how those came out. So it's kind of a back and forth with like, let's see what the raw generated prompts look like when I just let them go through. And then let me change them, let me add new terms, let me take things away and see what those look like. And so through that process, I kind of got to see what the machine wanted to do on its own versus how I could manipulate it. And yeah, there were certain things that I definitely guided that most of if you go through my body of work, generally, like most of them involve like some sort of central figure, typically an eye or a person's face, or a moon. And again, this is where like this whole process is kind of enlightening to me as an artist, because I know what I tend to like bring into my work, but like to have to categorize it like that. So yeah, I think I literally said more eyes. Like we need eyes to come up more in the prompts, and we'll see how it's reflected in the final output of the drop. But I was kind of like, eyes should be like maybe the most recurring theme in my outputs. And then faces, yeah, there's so many different ways to describe faces, right? There was a good amount where it's like just describing a face is not enough. Like what kind of face, what are they going through? So like faces like in distress, a face looking at like some miraculous thing unfolding in front of them, like trying to prompt it to create expressions and types of faces that I thought like reflected what happens in my work, because there would be some outputs that would come back where like there was like I don't know, like a really beautiful woman, like happy, and it was just like, this doesn't feel like the kind of like work that I'm making. But most of my work tends to be kind of like form of self-portrait or personal reflection. So just trying to guide it so it felt like it was going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's interesting because even when you said more eyes, I've seen like, with AI outputs where you put more eyes and it puts like more eyes on the face. Or like, how does it, as opposed to, where yours, like the eyes are all separate from each other, like, that kind of a thing.
So, yeah, so I think it's like about temperature. There's this idea of like certain keywords or certain themes or qualities. There's there's so many there's dozens of them, but that the outputs are going to like overweight like a large central eye, like make that something that happens more often, and maybe like multiple eyes is less occurring. But yeah, like I was saying, like there's there's literally so much variation that I've seen come out of this that we'll see what happens. But yeah, that central imagery, and then like there were ideas and prompts that I wouldn't have thought of myself that were like, oh yeah, that's really kind of true of my work. Sort of this like tunneling quality.
Oh, right.
Things kind of like orbiting around other things. So it kind of helped me understand like the language of my work in a way. And yeah, it's imperfect, right? But it's getting at the qualities in my work, which is really cool. And a lot of the outputs are, there's some that are way more abstract, don't have like a lot of recognizable imagery. It's just like pattern and form that look like my work, and those are really interesting too.
Yeah. So when he started training on it, did Orkhan add words himself, or did the model did it infer like words based on like what the images were?
You'll have to ask him directly, but I think it was both. I remember what I did was I was literally like, he's like, can I train on your work? I was like, yeah, here's my Vimeo profile, which has like the majority of my projects on there. Mm-hmm. And then my pieces, like an average 1 minute film of mine has 1,440 individual frames, and there's a lot of diversity in the images. So like he had to do the job of like going through and like highlighting what he thought were like, iconic. There it is. Yeah. So like I always make like a cover image for each piece, which is a good hint of what I think is sort of like an iconic image from the work. But he went through and highlighted a lot of specific frames from these, and then would, I think, use the model to try to describe what it is, but also manually put in words. And then what we did in the past week or two is go through that keyword list. And there were a few where I just said, like, try to tone this down. Like, trying to think of a specific example. There was like something about like, there are like houses and like villages in my work sometimes, but they're more like background or sort of, so there's like maybe like villages. I was like, villages is not like a main keyword, I would say, in my work. It's a part of it, but like, let's bring that down in importance and let's highlight something else. We played with color because if you look at my profile, like sometimes I do use color in my work, but I think most people know like majority of my work is in black and white. I'm sort of like, I think the recognizability of my work sometimes relies on that just like fine detailed black and white style. And so I literally was with Orkhan. I was like, I think for like just to keep this cohesive and sort of like connected and thematic as a collection, let's try to limit the color as much as possible for this time around at least. Mm-hmm. So it all kind of fits together. So that's something else I could say is like, we can take this model and adjust it for another thing or keep playing with it forever. There's no one right answer. It's like this model is exactly the Jake Free model, period. It's as much art as science, right? Like we're all making determinations. And so like, I think it was our job, or my job specifically, since I'm the artist, like giving permission for this, to sort of guide them towards like, all right, this is going to make like the variety of outputs all feel like they kind of fit together. And it's a way of like being like my work, but there's just no way you can encapsulate all my work into one piece or algorithm or like, which this is ultimately going to be a collection, right? So it should have some sort of like point of view, I think. And this is a longer discussion. I know I've been talking a long time now, but a longer discussion like is just thinking about like what does it mean to be an artist now that this is a thing that's out there, and how do I make art going forward? And recently I've been doing very, very simplified like flip books, and I like always pushing in new directions as an artist. And I think right now, like the kind of stuff I'm working on, like literally as we're speaking, is very sort of, it's obviously my work and expressively and aesthetically kind of similar, but to me it's very different kind of feel than the work that's coming out of this AI model. So to me that's exciting too. It's like I'm always going to be like evolving as an artist and adding new angles to it, and that's something I can keep in mind as I keep exploring AI. Like, how do I bring in different styles or aesthetics? And this is a big concept where it's like, yeah, the models can definitely like imitate my work in a lot of really eerie ways. Like it's kind of crazy how powerful it is. But there's a quality of movement to my work, like the frame by frame shifts, which I feel like is something that's like another level that we're not at yet with this model, where we're just trying to create these sort of short looping moving images, but nothing like you're playing right now, like these massive sweeps. Like once the AI can like, yeah, transition from like a car accident to like the next frame of people like advancing in the fog, like those kind of reading between the lines in my work, I think is as much as what the work's about. So yeah, it's just exciting to see where this tech will go, and I mean, obviously we're going to look back in 5-10 years and see what's coming out of this is still sort of like a primitive early stage, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, like, you know, like a good example was like when this ball came out, I'm quite sure it was not revealed it was you, but people were, I think majority of people guessed that was you for this proof drop. Because there's something about the transition of the frames, even though this wasn't black and white, like a lot of people, including myself, felt like this has got to be Jake Fried, right? So, and actually on that note, I just want to mention that, hey, Orkhan's, well, actually Genie's father is here on stage with us right now. Hey, Genie. Hey, Orkhan.
GM.
GM.
Thank you for having.
It's like 1 a.m. for you now, right?
Yeah, it's AM for me, literally AM. And sorry for being late. I didn't see your message and was doing something on the server.
No problem. We just started going through like what Jake Fried was discussing about, like how the model has been trained on his work. Haven't gotten to go over the work from Deface, but would love for you to just explain a bit more before we continue.
But I last think that Jake said that AI cannot go from car accident to the tunnel or something. It can. We just need to do like arrange it to do it. So I am planning working on nice animation tool for you after drop. Actually, not for you only, like for Deface, one amazing stuff for you, another for Osef. So everyone will have their own Genie that will collaborate with them.
Yeah, and I was so like I misunderstood. I thought that we could play with some of these outputs on the stream, but if you want to share, actually, I just wanted to, if you want to share a screen, I was actually going to go over some of the stuff from Defaced. He sent a Google Drive with like all these outputs and how he was when he was playing with the Genie, like what he was getting out of it.
I can play, but if we will get a server error. I don't want to.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, we can just work with this. Yeah.
So let's try which Deface. If we will create Jake's artwork, it will take so many time.
Does mine take 2 seconds compared to Jake's?
Yeah, Jake's like not 2 seconds. Like Jake has almost, I don't know, more than 18-30 frames. I really forget how many frames now he has.
Whilst you're in between this sort of stuff, could I ask you something, Jake? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
That we sort of glossed over. I think so. This current process to me is like you were describing, a sort of labeling and identifying using words, which I would refer to as a more of a conscious process for the most part, compared to probably yours and my traditional process of drawing, which for the most part, I'd say is more unconscious, relying on a stream of conscious thing, which obviously would probably be poets if we were a bit of words and would default to that. And do you think that when we don't rely on words, you're more likely to interact with something more intangible than get these new images, as you're describing, like the car and the tunnel? Like, do you think you'd find it harder to come to those conclusions if you were just limited to words?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the story of my, like, finding my process as an artist and I still work this way. When I pre-plan stuff, it's never as good or interesting. I almost don't care for it very much. And so
Yeah.
kind of describing it before I do it feels like pre-planning it and having an idea. And I don't make art from ideas. I let it unfold as I make it, and it's like I'm discovering it, and that's why it's so powerful. Because if I could have thought of it ahead of time, or like I wouldn't even feel the drive to make it. It's becoming itself as I make it. And yeah, the hardest thing is like even looking at these outputs that Praveen is playing. It's like when I'm making my work, I'm like, it's an eye, it's my eye, it's God's eye, it's the universe, it's a molecule, it's all those things at the same time. I'm thinking of it as this like this thing that can't be described. The indescribable is a lot of what my work is almost trying to capture. So trying to put into words does, in a lot of ways, feels like it cheapens it, kind of. That was my experience, and I think it still does, and but it is like poetry, and I did start to find with the prompts, like almost the more poetic it is, the closer it gets to my work. That my job as a prompter is not to describe a specific scene, the feeling, but to like create a mood, and then the limitations are like sort of like the limits of language, but it was also useful to like, to be like, okay, I do really like big, large central. I want more big eyes in the middle of the page, and like just write that down. And like kind of the simplicity of that again is sort of like profound for me. Where it's like what I'm doing is really complicated, but also maybe it's not. Like, and then asking the questions about, why do I make work like this? And like I was saying before, like I think the deepest question for me still is like, why does this output feel like it's me versus this other one? And the ways that it's wrong are almost like more enlightening than when I feel like it's right.
Yeah, I think it's because you feel like you can almost relate to the choices that are present there. I don't know, like if you're looking almost like at the exact lines, like, I probably wouldn't put one there. It's like, how much can you see yourself in that through the decision making? I don't know. It's very intangible.
Yeah, and then I'll just say, and the way they move, they still feel like there's a lot of. It's kind of the same with art making too, where it's like, I worked really hard on two pieces equally, put all myself into it. One just sort of like the movement of it, like is insatiable. Like it's so rewatchable, you can't pull away from it. It just vibes. And the other one is equally as good, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't like grab hold. I think so much of art making is that sort of intangible quality of like this one just hits. And the older I've gotten as an artist, I don't even have to know why. I just know it is.
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
Why,
that human frequency of human decision making, I feel like so refined, like over fucking your whole lifespan, isn't it? Really, all your likes and dislikes, every opinion you've had sort of expresses itself through that medium.
Sorry for interrupting, guys.
Sorry.
So this is if you put the click there, the checkbox, it makes upscaler and higher res and takes a little bit longer.
Okay.
But more high quality, and deface you can put, and you can change everything, whatever. Let's say the monochromic grayscale, cartoon style, description of a guy. If you refresh the page, it will create another prompt, so you can change prompt. Like if you are not comfortable with the prompt, you can just refresh the page. It will create something new.
So then if I just click simulate mint, right?
Yeah, and now we just need to wait 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
You could click this checkbox because deface will not like the result without that.
Okay, got it. And then we can come back. I can see it running on the Chrome on the tabs, so then we can just come back to that.
Yeah, but I think the Jake's not running. Or running? Yeah, running.
It's running as well. Yeah, both are running right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So with Jake's, I removed the check, and then with deface. So during the mint, will the minter get to choose the whether they can use this part as well, or? Oh wow! Oh my gosh! There you go. Oh. Yeah, Deface, do you want to, if you want to talk about any of these pieces from your side? Well,
Yeah,
Orkhan's
sure.
just changing something in the back.
Yeah, we could chat about these. So these, I don't know how many fucking pieces I sent Orkhan, like a few hundred, I reckon. So these date back to maybe like 2020, 2019. So they're like, I like to think my style is less cemented than some of the other people, so there's a bit more variety. So I think we have a couple models that can be minted, maybe like 2 or 3 potentially. So they'll all have the potential to have slightly different styles. To dating to almost like, I don't know, last week when I've done some artworks and we chucked them in there just to see. So you can see like this one obviously hallucinates a lot more. So I left this one in just so you can see how interesting the hallucination is, and like me and Jake were talking about earlier, how doesn't necessarily reflect our style exactly, but still holds merit
Oh,
in.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something. It's like it's obviously an experiment, isn't it? So
I mean, you're the
it's
artist too. I defer to you, of course, but as someone who's seen your work a lot, like it immediately like
yeah,
resonated with me that like this is your style, you know, like I was trying to
sure.
think of the piece that I saw that it reminded me of. I think it's in the same category as this collection. I think in here, or was it another collection? Was it another collection? But
Yeah,
when
more
I
abstract one
yep,
potentially.
yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's like we said, like holding that mirror up to yourself. But I think Jake worded it in a funny way, where it's like a funhouse mirror, so you get these odd distortions that you might not recognize. Um, so yeah, I think I think it's gonna be super fun. I'm really interested to see how they all turn out and when we can look back on them. Like they feel like they come from a different realm. Like this one, I don't know. I feel like there's some like symbol, like the eyes and nose like recognizable.
Mhm.
Then it starts to deteriorate in some aspects, like the hair and stuff, and maybe the paintbrush. And I might not make a body like that, but you see where you're sort of working back and forth with the AI. So this probably would have been refined more and more to get closer to my style. Whatever that is, I suppose just these barriers you set yourself mentally of what you do and don't like. Which is quite interesting. And this is obviously the one before would be based off like
Yeah.
stuff. We put in loads of outputs from the Lost in the Supermarket piece, which you brought up on the super rare section. So we basically cut up all these little snippets, sort of a tiny like figures we put onto white background, so we'd get each element separated, which. You get, I think it helped instead of training it as like a big mass, a big bulk, we could start to get detail. Then probably in the future we can work out to getting something a bit more crazy like
Man,
this.
I just inspired me. Wow, it could be so amazing. Imagine like we are creating these small characters and later just combine them like this together.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we could do it with AI, but I suppose we could do it manually as well, or some process.
Yeah, manually or AI can do it, composite for you, different compositions, and you can choose or interact. And
Yeah,
wow, it's
yeah.
nice.
So yeah, there's loads of shit we could do really, which is I think the most interesting part. And it's been fun working with Orkhan instead of just using something like Midjourney or a server where there's not that I can't interact with it anyway. It's like a
Yeah.
flat surface. There's no interaction or places to develop as much. So yeah, it's been cool, man.
Actually, Orkhan, one of the messages I got was asking like, so this is excuse my naivete around this, but it's not like, for example, Stable Diffusion, right? You've built like a separate model. How exactly, like, how is it that you're able to train? Like, I don't see any, like, not pollution, but like I don't see like the style of Alien Queen popping up in the outputs for Timpers, for example. How is it all training separate, for example?
So we use core model Stable Diffusion, but we don't use the dataset. We just use the model itself. And so how the AI is generally the diffusion model working and how I implement it in the Genie structure. First, we draw like as an artist a sketch, and later we paint the sketch with artist style. This is the particular to the face work and Osef's work, Alien Queen's work. The others was a little different methodology. So there's something that few points I could not like disclose how the know-how, how we achieve the results, but there are a few fine-tuning methods like there's a LoRa's, there's Dream Boots, there are textual inversions. Each time when you create something, piece of that artwork is always someone's, as you know, it's not only your train but others as well. To avoid that, I made this approach that we create first, let's say, the basic sketch of the artwork, and later paint it. And again, using Studio Diffusion, we just create multiple scenes for creating the animation. I was planning to do a very unique animation approach to find the objects in a scene and animate them uniquely separately. But unfortunately, I couldn't. I made the test, but it wasn't risky to make in production level, so I will keep it for later.
Amazing.
But soon, like when we will launch all the tokenomics and for public use, for the regulations, I need to avoid the future problems and regulations. I will create a kind of white paper which explains all methods that we use and approaches how we train and how we create and how to draw or animate.
So then, like for now, you've worked with all, with the 8 artists, and I know you've trained with the CC0 works of Xcopy. So it, like, how would you change it where, like in the future, you wouldn't have to get involved with the artist would be able to just use Genie by themselves? How would that work?
So there are small few elements that you need to know to be able to use Genie full capability. And it starts with just a basic understanding of how image works, how style works, how composition works. Once as a graphic designer or as just a visual person, who is, I don't know, I'm confused in thoughts. It's what when you don't sleep.
Yeah, it's also impressive that
Can you
you've
elaborate again? Can you tell me your question again?
Yeah, in terms of like right now you had to involve yourself a lot in helping each of these artists train.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there was a lot of tests in the beginning to understand, because always I used Genie with my own artworks and with traditional art paintings. So my goal was in the beginning to build the Genie for myself and to to be able to create my own installations.
Mhm.
And and there are a lot of like experiences I understand as an artist, as a designer, and I now put them all together. And when I was like the first working with Deface, let's say, I was not expecting that I could create this kind of structure system that there will be different characters, and each characters will have different attributes, etc. So by like a Deface work is totally different, Jack Friday's work is totally different, Xscope is totally different. Mainly, I try to choose the so different distinguished style artists that I could apply these approaches for future for our artists. That now I'm like suffering to understanding what kind of image is working, not working, what kind of prompting techniques you need to use, what need to use. Once now everything is in. I learned, I tried, did so many experiments to be able to achieve these results. So my next goal is converting this. You just saw the user interface, like how it was a basic, I didn't care about even the choosing a font for that.
Yeah.
So
though I do like it. I do kind of like it like that. I like the minimalist.
So my now goal is making maximum out of this drop, that people will see, wow, it's so different, so vibrant, and it will inspire other artists, and I will get, let's say, enough reach, and later spending my time, my energy, and my resources to building and scaling Genie, that whatever I experience gained now with working with Deface, with Grantune, Lucris, or Alinkun, or the Deface, Jackfried, there's so many inputs, so many experiences. I don't think so anyone can get in that sort of time of period. So for future, it will be very user friendly. You will not need any technical knowledge. Everything will be talking with you, communicating with you. This was one of the biggest reasons why I choose the Genie name as a positioned as not as a platform, but as an artist companion, and humanize it with the branding, that the name, the character, how it talks, how it's the style, that want to feel people that to explore new things. You don't need to really know the technical details. There are enough tools. When you put them together, you could do this kind of similar projects. But now, when I get the feedbacks from Jack Fried, Osef, Deface, and other amazing artists, this makes me so excited to even I stopped thinking about some of my own art projects and thinking, what can I do that Deface will use it in his animation mood boards? What can I do that he's animates his own characters? What can I do this Jack Fried, he creates his own a long form 1 minute, not a 10-minute, 1 hour maybe long movies using just the prompts and explaining. And it's really so excited and so amazing that I'm an artist, and also I'm doing this for other artists, for my friends, and I know how it will affect to their creative career, creative journey.
Yeah, it's funny because I've heard you on Spaces quite a few times, but I think some people might not be aware that you yourself have as an artist as well, right? Like it's not just that you've been working on Genie, like you've been there's quite a few of us that have been following you on the art side as well. So it's great to see like how that's gone from like the work that you do versus now working with artists on this has been pretty good, pretty amazing.
Exactly. Also, another reason is I really wanted to separate this from my own identity, because I really spent almost 10 years to make this research of
10 years, wow.
Almost this having the research of digital Orientalism and let's say Islamic art and Arabic art, this is my own identity. I cannot go out away. This is what makes me understand myself and keep questioning who am I and where am I from, and how my cultural identity affects me as a human, how my traditions and the, let's say, the cultural heritages of beliefs affects me in my life. So this is part of me. It will be never change. It's me. I have so many ideas, so many projects to explore, to research. But what else I recognize in this life, that we live one time, and no one should put any guideline as an artist to us that you have to have only follow this. I have opportunities. I have amazing collectors that supports me and allows me to build and invest the projects like in Genie. They also like a support. And I will keep creating this kind of experiments and share whatever I learn. Why just save myself and experiment and do as much as more project, more ideas, even for sale, not for sale. To I didn't choose to be artists, and I think the most of us here also they didn't choose to be. It's not easy to be artists, and just life is so short, and we need to create, do whatever one we want, once whatever makes us happy. And
The one thing I heard on the spaces earlier, I think it was Jake who said it, like Jake or Defaced, about like you're making the art, and now as an art, like I can't even picture myself as one of you artists. Like you think of your own mortality and like, okay, my body of work will be made when I'm alive, and then what happens now? There's something that could infinitely create my art based on me. Like it still identifies as like your work, but it's not created by you, right? But it is that work itself.
amazing. It's amazing though. It's Jake's word, and also Jake's told something that like in his one documentary with I think Art of Internet it was, that now we are creating, now we have these ideas, we don't know really what will happen after us and how these works will live, and they will keep inspiring the others or changing someone's mind and perception about the life or influence their decisions. And imagine now we have this kind of tools. I'm not maybe first, not maybe the last ones.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a lot of tools. They will come more good, more than genies, and we will create and we will go away from this world. How many of them will stay? How this kind of things will adopted by the masses, and how the derivatives culture maybe will gain another perspective with this generative AI. So we don't know, but that quote was very nice, that how it will, because it's infinite, as the Jakes told before.
Yeah.
And people can keep creating. We could put guidelines, we could put ideas, but and imagine like when these people are putting the prompts, they are creating the artworks. Will artists learn from these prompts of ideas? I'm not just putting prompt as an idea. So for example, we are showing these illustrations of Deface. He's seeing it. He will keep creating more and more and more, and our visual memory will keep keep remember them. And when he will make new artworks, he will remember that, oh, my Genie made something like this, I remember. Oh, let me make the alternatives. He will continue to draw. Will this Genie make the artist more lazy, or as Jake told before, will it make me to work more harder on my works that AI cannot copy, or it will be so phenomenal that when people see it, they will get so fascinated, and it's now our job is being more powerful than AI.
Yeah, I mean, from a different standpoint, like I watch a lot of a lot of gaming stuff, and they talked about how with AI that we've got centuries of people playing chess, right? And then with AI, there was new strategies that they hadn't thought about before, and seeing that with Go, or even like with gaming online, where once AI is involved, how the gaming changes, and it's very interesting to see some artists like they look at what AI is doing with their own style and prompts, and then they're like, "Huh, wait, I never thought about doing something like that." So, truly using AI as as a tool to help with the creativity, rather than uh, considering it as like, "Oh no, it's just stealing my creativity." It can be an enhancement to your creativity.
So I think like there's a nice word came to my mind recently that um, Genie helps artists to create artworks that they could create, but they didn't create yet.
I like that, sampling from the future, or sampling from another alternate dimension where the same artist has created the work.
Exactly.
Deface,
So
is there anything else about the ones that you had in here that I missed, by the way? If there's anything that you want me
if
to.
you forgive me,
Yeah, if you got to
and
go.
I have to go.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate. I know it's been an insanely busy week for you, Orkhan, and I didn't even realize that when we scheduled this, that you actually had two other spaces going live before this, and that you're also getting ready for the drop that is happening at 11 p.m. British Standard Time, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so please go ahead and drop off, and I'll wrap it up with Jake and Deface.
Thank you very much, and
Speak
thanks for
soon, bud.
having me.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take it easy, man.
I think I was just thinking about what you were saying about gaming and AI, and I was thinking about how much we care for AI generated stuff currently. So there's a lot of discourse, even like on Facebook with like AI stuff, and old people reacting to it, and kids taking a piss out of it. There's all these social dynamics going on, and a good take I haven't thought much about was there's this musician, I think they're Wolfpack, and they're talking about AI music, and his point was how many people watch AI chess, like computers play chess against each other. Like it's just not really a thing. So it's like how much do we value human choice over everything, like human emotion? So I really don't know. It's really interesting release. And one thing I want to ask you, how do you pronounce it? Praveen, is it?
Praveen, yeah.
Praveen is we talked to Roger about this earlier, but what do you think? Well, yourself included, but what do you think people value from his outputs? Like, do you think people value outputs that are deranged? Do you think people value outputs that closely resemble the artist? Like, what do you think your value structures with this experiment?
Oh, I really like that question. So it's interesting. I've been collecting art, just in the last 3 years, and sometimes when I collect an artist, I've noticed sometimes certain collectors want to get something that's particularly in their known style. So I could see maybe some collectors want a Jake Fried that has a big central eye, for example, or some people want a Grant Yuen piece that has more of a landscape, or rather than like he has some works that are indoors, whereas some of his works are outdoors, of like highways. Like for me personally, I've sometimes often collected rarer works where it's like it doesn't match their main body of work, but I've collected something where I'm like, oh, even it's kind of different. I want the different one. And then sometimes I've noticed the market prefers where everybody tries to collect the same kind of style. I think there might be similar analogies with contemporary art that way. Like maybe people collect more particular styles of Picasso rather than other ones of his. So I'm very curious that like where the market will tend to, like, will they prefer a defaced one that is like a singular person. Like for me personally, I loved Lost in the Supermarket. It was so different from the other pieces.
Sure.
So when I saw it, I immediately pulled it up because I'm not the perfect person in terms of describing, like, what do you call it when the composition is this way, where it's very centered, as opposed to something like this, where there's, it's much more, there's so much more complexity to it. And then there's this negative space and the characters over here. So like for me personally as a collector, I would be attracted to something like this. Whereas I can see some collectors who'd say, no, I prefer to get something that's more in the regular, like typical composition of your works, right?
Yeah, sure.
So that's a very interesting thing to see. Like, I know some collectors that would just be like, oh, I just want to get 20 of these, rather than one differing one. So it's very interesting to see how the market behaves that way.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. We were talking about Roger earlier and the analogy of like a misprint or something, which I found interesting because it's like Jake said earlier, was like we haven't made these artworks, so we have no sort of control over how they come out. So it'd be interesting if people do treat it like, I don't know, when there's like a novel sort of signature on a print, or like a crossing out or a misprint or a miscolor or something. So yeah, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, like like if you look at Grant's early work, for example, when he was exploring his style, I believe it's under the Super Rare contract. Like, do people look at this and think it's Grant?
Well, as a Jake Fried, that one, yeah.
Exactly, right?
I love it.
I
Yeah.
didn't even realize till today that it's animated. Like I always looked at it like this, and I didn't realize till today.
I wonder if these all have their own models, which Orkhan is trained on, or if he's left them out. That would be very interesting.
This is an old. Oh, you mean if it's in? Oh.
If it's going to be in the Genie project, like if he's included these with the models. So essentially, I'll have different. I don't know if Jake has multiple models, but a few of us have multiple models where our styles differ. So I don't know if Grant will put these different to create different models, to create different outputs. It'd be very interesting.
That's also interesting that you bring up like the having multiple models. I wonder if there's any way to play off those, because that could be also very like some unique outputs, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
You tell the model it's all you, and then it can mix and match sort of and riff with it.
Yeah, it'd almost be having the artworks in conversation with a past version of yourself, which I think is it would just get crazier and crazier. And I think the idea of mixing and matching between styles is something I'm also interested in, like these forced collaborations between people's work. I think would be really interesting as well.
I didn't even think about the false collaborations. I was thinking about the same artist, but the various styles or like across their career, and it could maybe play off those.
Yeah, like you get a blue period Picasso with a cubist.
Yeah, like I went to the Rothko exhibit and I know nothing about Rothko, and I was like, I would never have guessed like these are Rothkos. Like I had no idea like Rothko did stuff like this, right? Like everyone just thinks of these, but like his early work.
I'm sure Jake already knew this. He was giving me a tour at the MoMA.
That's what, dude, that was so fun. But yeah, I mean, you learn Rothko makes more sense in context when you see it. What the art looked like when they were growing up and when they were studying and young. And every artist that does something significant always starts in the style, maybe or like a mode that was the generation before them. So my work's evolved. I was just sharing paintings on the timeline that I made like 20 years ago because I went back and saw some of them. And my work's evolved so much over time, but that's the story of like you see how textured these old paintings were of mine. And that's basically like I've always been reworking and layering images in my work. I just like had to make that transition from reworking the same painting literally to like recording that process and making the process of reworking an image, the work itself. There's so many profound ideas to bring once we start going with this idea. It's going to be insane. But yeah, you can see in my work, like I have blockier, color-based stuff, and that was part of my model at the beginning. But But like, yeah, mixing this stuff with like my black and white fine detail work, like does start to create work that doesn't feel like mine necessarily, because they're like, they behave differently and have a different like visual language. So I did try to kind of repress that and limit the more colorful stuff for this round. And yeah, Orkhan was like, he showed me the background of like the eventual platform, where like he was saying, you don't even really need to know how this works. And like there are like toggles and switches for like all the different aspects. Like the real experimentation for me would be like just to go in with the model and fuck around with it. See what happens when I turn everything on and then like flip on these colors and turn off this mood, and just like keep iterating on different, like start playing with it and just button mashing basically with the model and just seeing what comes out, and then being like we would ultimately be saying the reaction to the output feels like a very human decision. Like there's no AI that's going to go and judge and be like, these are the best ones that came out of this, because like the best one is it's a subjective, right? Like art is subjective, like ultimately, what's good or bad. So I think no matter how far we get with the tech, it's always going to be up to the artist to be like, this is that choice making is like where the artistry comes in.
That's really interesting. I'm thinking that, because you're talking about having a piece, like an older piece, and like mixed with a newer piece. Like you could also, so effectively, I don't know how you say you got your style, but I'd say it's like years of taking another artist, taking the stuff you don't like. Okay, I like how he drew this. I like how she drew this, and he put it together over years. Like if you gave those sort of tools to like an AI, you could create like this completely AI artist. I know like there's stuff out there already, but I don't know. I feel like it could be worked on with fucking artists leading the helm to create something a bit more unique.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's really interesting. And I want to say, hearing Orkhan talk again, like kind of, it's like mind blowing. Do we lose Praveen?
Yeah, he's
oh, there he is. Just he's so confident about where this is going. And again, like every time they're like, I know I can't do this, but let's try this. He's like, no, I can do that.
Yeah,
it's like,
all right. Because of these long videos, you fucking can, mate. Just give me 10 years.
Exactly. So like, I do not doubt his ambition, like regarding this stuff. It's crazy. So I'm very excited to see what is possible. And yeah, but I also I do think this gives artists longevity, like he was saying, like in a way artists have never had before, which is really cool. That my work is like in this collective unconscious database that like can be used by future, artists and creative people. I think excites me a lot. But I also think all this tech like kind of always goes back to highlighting like what really makes us human and that important quality. And like, I think this tool gets my work even out into the world even more. What I'm really excited about, again, is when this drop actually happens tonight and over the next few days, is like the interaction between the collectors. Like they're a part, like they're literally like pressing the button to make this happen. So like if in a way, like it's like people inhabiting me as an artist, like they're making the art. It's very rudimentary now where the prompts are, generated for them, but like you're seeing how it's made in front of you and like you're a part of making it. I think that's like a new quality to art making. So Deface, I don't know if you thought about this, but like technically someone could be playing with the prompts that we've been working on. And I feel like if I let some other person play with it, they would sort of inhabit me in a lot. They would start to like inhabit me as an artist, a creative person, or be a part of it. And that's a kind of a new thing.
Yeah, I think that goes so far. But once you start talking about the idea of time as well, like I'm sure you and I would both get fucking bored of where the AI is. You're like, okay, this is stagnant. I want to add a pink, say, in your black and white work. I want to progress. How do I push this forward? Okay, I need to have new influences. Okay, I love this Rothko exhibition. I'm going to take this, apply it to this part of my work. and you're like, there's forward momentum there. I don't see the AI having this own conscious forward momentum yet.
Not
I don't know
yet.
how you feel about that.
Not yet.
Yeah, no, if we had
That's how
fucking
we say.
Orkhan on here, he'd be telling me off. I can only say it when he's not here. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jake?
I think that's really interesting. Like creating a mood board, or yeah, like imagine taking all my family photos from the last like 40 years, adding it to the database and mixing it with my style and seeing what comes out of it and what happens. And
I was thinking, like, you know, when we see paintings, like you listen, you watch the painting, right? You look at the painting. When a composer makes music, nobody reads the sheet music, right? They play it, and like at that moment, are you inhabiting that composer's mind by playing that music on whichever instrument? Like, you could play the same composition on different instruments, right? So I sometimes when, like, you know, like you were saying about somebody playing with these outputs, they're then inhabiting you as an artist, like how you create your work, as opposed to just looking at
That's
your work.
interesting. That was really eerie. As soon as you said that, my Spotify started playing on its own, and some piano started playing out of nowhere. Felt like it possessed my computer. That's really fucking bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm really fascinated. I really love music, so I'm always fascinated by the crossover where visual and music stuff intercepts. I think that's an interesting take on it. It's almost like, I don't know. I feel like also how people can interpret like a piece of music, but also you can tell who's the composer as well by their different styles. So I suppose that's another aspect. But the one I was talking to Jake and Roger about earlier was the idea of sampling. So like taking pieces of a song and constructing something new out of it, like pushing it forward. Like if people were to collage, I don't know, the outputs from me and Jake into something new, like how can they take the initiative to progress it as well is fascinating to me.
Guys, I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate both of you jumping on this, because I've heard you guys talk about this on Spaces, but like it was really exciting to me to see. I was nervous for Orkhan, that would the artists that are collaborating with this be actually as enthusiastic as he and I felt, like as he did as a creator, and me as an enjoyer looking at this output. I was really curious to see how artists like you all who were involved in it actually felt, and it's been pretty interesting. Like I love seeing the response from you all about this.
Yeah, what's interesting is sort of like the results that feel separated from me. So like I know no matter what, like outputs are going to be cool and interesting. Like we're saying, some like the judgment, whether it's good or bad, like I feel no anxiety about people being like, oh, this one sucks. Like the street food derivative stuff. It's like it's the randomized output. Like it came from my model, but it's not like I did a bad job as an artist, right? Like it's just a grand experiment. I do want to, when you guys were talking, just the last thought. Written music is really interesting because the way you play it is different, right? So the composer creates a sort of guideline, but then every good musician or conductor or whatever brings themselves to it, or bring something different to it, and that's what makes great musicians, like classical musicians. And it would be really cool. Like you could write the same prompt, put it in my model, put it in D-Face's model, put it in Alien Queen's model, blah blah blah, and like those outputs would all be different, but they'd all be coming from the same prompt. And there's something there I think that's interesting too, where it's like you're creating this like it's how it translates all the same thing that everyone can. You know what I mean? Like everyone can speak the same language, but then these sort of translated into different visual languages.
I wish there was a way I could put one prompt, and then I could like say check a box and say give me all 9 artists, and like I know the reason. Like it's good that it's like randomized, but like, you know, put one prompt.
He said like, mine would ruin it. That's why. Yeah.
But guys, I have a hard stop in 2 minutes. I have to head out for something. But greatly appreciate you guys jumping in on this, and really excited to see the final results, the final outputs that have come out over the next 48 hours after the mint starts. And we'll definitely be paying attention to it on the timeline.
Oh, thanks for having us on. It's been a pleasure to meet and chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Let me just hang up the stream 1 second.